Hi, this is Carl again, and this is part 2 of the discussion on A. Michel Thomas, B. Visual learners or visual learning, and C. Those people who often say that they aren't fond of verbs and aren't particularly fond of learning modern foreign language grammar. Now, as I mentioned in part 1, the majority, if not all of us, when we enrol onto a modern foreign language course through a further education college or through a private language school, what to do is to increase, as far as possible, our oral linguistic proficiency, be able to speak the language, and to a slightly lesser degree, be able to understand what is being said back to us in the target language. But at the same time, the majority of us will say that we are visual learners, and visual learners come into many different categories and classifications, including, for example, those people who say that they prefer to write something down before they say it and think through the sentence structure and the formation of the sentences in order to get it correct. Those people who prefer to work out the sentence order from being given flashcards, which they have to put in the right order to make a coherently structured sentence or question. And then we have those people who prefer to have something written down in front of them, which then they can read from and develop their oral linguistic proficiency from there. But obviously, from a realistic angle, those people who are wanting to be able to converse in dialogue with native speakers of any modern foreign language, what they have to do and what they have to realise, I think, is that they won't always have their notebook there with them. They won't always have the time to refer to phrase books, to refer to their written notes. And obviously, in an everyday situation with whomever, a native speaker, obviously, if we have this kind of situation going on where somebody was asked to say one word at a time within a sentence, and then the other person was looking in a bilingual dictionary or, as I say, a phrase book, or consulting their written notes, then obviously this isn't a realistic way in order to guarantee an improvement in the development of oral linguistic proficiency, which, as I say, the majority, if not all of us, when we start learning a modern foreign language or pursue our studies of a modern foreign language, this is what we want to be able to do. And as I said in part 1, I myself, I'm a visual learner, but when I first started out as a modern foreign language learner, I was able to identify with these people who prefer to write things down, who preferred to think through the structure of sentences and sentence word order. I was a person who was very concerned with being accurate. I wouldn't say something unless I knew it was going to be as grammatically correct as possible. I've since come across many other learners of this particular type. But I think since I've started to learn multiple languages, since 2005, since graduating from university, having got a degree in German and Spanish, what I've done since then, learning French, Italian, Japanese and Polish independently, is to become aware of my own learning strategies and then use the conscience which I have in terms of who am I as a learner, how do I learn best. I've then been able to use these in my teaching and then put forward suggestions to my students as to how they can arguably still fixate on the visual learning preference and continue with their visual learning preferences, but at the same time integrate some kind of oral language, some kind of audio material in order to help them build upon and drastically improve their oral linguistic proficiency as well. Now, what I've realised, and this is only a technique which I've picked up on within the last few months, is that when you listen to Michel Thomas, although he tells you at one stage, or the methodologists who have continued to teach modern foreign languages under the Michel Thomas methodology since he passed away in 2005, declare learners should refrain as far as possible from writing anything down, or in other words, there is no need to write anything down, there is no need to take notes, everything will be absorbed by the brain and will only require the student in question or the pupil in question to listen to the audio material and build proficiency from there. Now this is actually possible even for visual learners, and many people even so have come to me, including my own students, and said, I've heard lots of talk about Michel Thomas, that it's really good, but I've used it and I didn't really think that it was my cup of tea. Now there is a way that people who adopt that attitude can indeed make Michel Thomas their cup of tea, and I'm going to discuss here in part 2 as to why that is the case. When I first started to learn Japanese and Polish more or less simultaneously at the start of October 2009, because Polish and Japanese are much different from the Latin-based languages which I'm used to, and even the German language, which I thought was going to be quite similar to Polish, when in fact it is completely different. What I've had to do is I've had to come to the realization, develop an appreciation of the fact that I don't really have a Latin base of which I can go in order to predict words and in order to be able to recognize similarities between Polish/Japanese and the Latin-based languages, because no such associations exist. Japanese obviously having its own writing systems, and Polish having a pronunciation system which, in comparison to its written system, bears fewer resemblances as contrasted with Spanish, spoken Spanish, written Spanish, spoken French, written French, spoken Italian, written Italian, and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is that where Polish is concerned, the spoken language, as far as I can see, is difficult to associate with the written language at this particular stage, because I'm used to phonetically correct languages as far as Spanish and German are concerned, and where Italian is concerned, when I did begin to learn that particular language, I was able to think, okay, the vowel sounds are quite similar to they are in Spanish, as in the majority of the consonants. But obviously when you get to Polish, you have foreign, unusual consonant combinations which don't render the pronunciation you would expect. And that's one of the reasons why, so far, despite having learnt Polish since October 2009, over the course of the last 3 months, I've only looked at a very few number of Polish words and considered their pronunciation. Now what I do is, when I listen to Michel Thomas in both Polish and Japanese, I listen to the word, and then what I will do is to invent a fictitious spelling of the word, or at a later stage the phrase which I'm being asked to translate, onto my mind, and regardless of whether the word which I've spelt out in my head on the basis of the sound is incorrect, as far as I can see, that makes no difference to the ability, or to my own personal ability, to gain confidence in developing my oral skills within those two languages. So this is what I've started to do every single time I listen to a new word in Polish, a new word in Japanese. I invent a spelling for that word, I imprint it on my mind, and then occasionally, if by coincidence the word which I've heard, or the spelling which I've invented, whether it be right or wrong, happens to exist in another language which I'm already familiar with, then that is obviously an advantage and a method which I can use to hold on to the word and its meaning in English. So that is a way in which you can fixate the majority of your attention to audio material, but at the same time the visual learning is not within any visual materials, external visual materials such as papers, documents, sheets, written role plays. The visual reference actually lies within the human brain. Now what I will do is I'll continue this discussion in part 3, and then talk more about visual learners, but especially about those people who say that they're not very fond of verbs, or that particularly fond of modern foreign language grammar.